It was one of those days. It seemed like every brick wall I could hit, I did. And then some more. And I couldn't help thinking to myself, why does it have to be so hard? I'm Gila Ross. Welcome back to the Perek Project, where we look at Perek Avot, the ethics of the fathers, in just a few minutes in each episode. And we walk away with some incredibly relevant insights into our everyday lives. I'm Gila Ross, host of the Power Up podcast, and I think in this episode we're going to look at a question that comes up in many different formats so many times. Let's begin by looking at our forefather Abraham. When we look at his life, one of the things that stands out is that he was tested again and again and again. In fact, his faith and his loyalty towards God was put under stress 10 times. Now, what's the significance in it? So we're going to look at two different things. The significance in Abraham being tested, and also what we can learn about why we ourselves are challenged and tested in life. So Abraham passing those tests is significant for us, his descendants, because through passing those tests, he rooted within our spiritual DNA certain capabilities and certain abilities. Within us, he rooted the ability to withstand challenges, to be able to stand up to testing times. We see this nowadays, for example, there are parents that have the tremendous courage to sacrifice so that their children should have a Jewish education, whether it's by sending them to a school where they don't necessarily socially fit in, but they know that they are going to get the correct Jewish education, or whether it's by sacrificing financially, by sending them to a fine Jewish institution, or by allowing them to go away to further their Jewish education. Where do such parents get the strength of character from? This has been rooted, this potential to be able to sacrifice for our children's Jewish education has been rooted into us by Abraham passing the test that when God told him, "Come and follow me," Abraham said, "Yes, I will follow you." When we look at all of Abraham's tests, it brings up the question, what is the point in a test? Especially, we're told that God doesn't test someone beyond their capabilities. So that means that before God tests someone, God knows that that person can pass that test. So what's the point in that test? It obviously can't be like a test that we take in school where the teacher gives it so the teacher can find out where the student's holding, because God is all-knowing. God already knows. There's a very different purpose, because for us human beings, before a person is tested, they are potential. But what a test does is a test takes that potential and turns it into reality. And interestingly, we see this in Abraham. At the end of his 10th test, when he's asked to bring his child up, the angel calls out and he says, "Abraham, Avraham, Avraham." He calls his name a double. Why? Because we're told that the angel was saying, the Abraham above, the Abraham of potential, and the Abraham below, the reality of Abraham, they now match. They're now exactly the same. When Abraham passed those 10 tests, he brought the Abraham in potential into reality. The truth, though, is that it's even more than that. Why? We see this with the Hebrew word. The Hebrew word for a test is a nisayon. And in Hebrew, the word nisayon is related to the word nes, which means a miracle. Now in Hebrew, when you have one word which has more than one meaning, it means that there's some sort of relationship between those two different words. What does it mean? It means that when God gives a person a test, God, it's a miracle that they pass. And sometimes we feel this in our own life, right? We have a challenging situation and we feel like, I can't. And then we manage to pass. What's happening there is that the test is pushing a person beyond their natural capabilities and their natural limitations. And by a person passing that test, it's a miracle, and they become someone greater and bigger than they could have been without it. And now, not only are we a greater person for passing that, but now God can actually reward us for taking that potential and becoming and turning it into reality, and sometimes turning it beyond what we could have been. There's another insight into why we have challenges, and we see this also from the Hebrew word, because nisayon, a test, is related to a banner. Because when a person successfully passes a challenging time, they emerge as a better person. And just as a banner is raised higher and higher on the pole, so too this person becomes a greater and greater person. And just like a banner announces something to the public, so too a person who passes a challenging time inspires other people. When we read through Abraham's 10 tests, people became aware of it and inspired by it. When we hear of people that go through a challenging time and yet are able to emerge from it and to make something good from it, that inspires us. So through Abraham's 10 tests, we understand a little bit about why we are given challenges. We're given challenges because, number one, that's how we take our potential and turn it into reality, and often surpass who we could have been without that challenge. And secondly, when a person successfully passes a challenge, and God never gives us a challenge that we can't pass, they inspire others. Thank you so much for listening. If you have any thoughts or comments or feedback, I'd love to hear it. You can get in touch with me via Instagram. You can find me there at Gila Ross. And if you enjoyed listening to this podcast, please subscribe for future episodes and share the word with your friends. Thank you so much for spending your time with us today.